Fortunately, he fancied that Dante was delirious, and placing the food on the rickety table, he withdrew. Edmond listened, and the sound became more and more distinct. There can be no doubt about it, thought he. It is some prisoner who is striving to obtain his freedom. Oh, if I were only there to help him! Suddenly, another idea took possession of his mind, so used to misfortune that it was scarcely capable of hope. The idea that the noise was made by workmen the governor had ordered to repair the neighboring dungeon. It was easy to ascertain this, but how could he risk the question? It was easy to call his jailer's attention to the noise, and watch his countenance as he listened, but might he not by this means destroy hopes far more important than the short-lived satisfaction of his own curiosity? Unfortunately, Edmund's brain was still so feeble that he could not bend his thoughts to anything in particular. He saw but one means of restoring lucidity and clearness to his judgment. He turned his eyes towards the soup which the jailer had brought, rose, staggered towards it, raised the vessel to his lips, and drank off the contents with a feeling of indescribable pleasure. He had the resolution to stop with this. He had often heard that shipwrecked persons had died through having eagerly devoured too much food. Edmund replaced on the table the bread he was about to devour and returned to his couch. He did not wish to die. He soon felt that his ideas became again collected. He could think and strengthen his thoughts by reasoning. Then he said to himself, I must put this to the test without compromising anybody. If it is a workman, I need but knock against the wall and he will cease to work, in order to find out who is knocking and why he does so. But as his occupation is sanctioned by the governor, he will soon resume it. If, on the contrary, it is a prisoner, the noise I make will alarm him, he will cease and not begin again until he thinks everyone is asleep. Hell yeah, Dante is gonna live. Listen, I was a little worried there that Dumas was gonna stretch this bleak state of Dante for a couple chapters. The fact that it was just half of this chapter, thank God. I mean, it's still not looking good for him. He's in prison, but like the will to live, thank God. We're back with that. Dante, you have begun your ascent, and I am here for it. And if I could just take a second, this story deals with really big themes and dark themes, as we've seen in this chapter and many chapters before this. And I don't intend to be too oblique about this, but I just want to take this opportunity to point out this passage today and yesterday, how important it is for even the littlest things that can make a difference in someone's life. Here, clearly, I mean, we're painting in big, broad brushstrokes with big feelings and big action and, it being a potential hope for liberty is what is turning Dante around here. But in reality, those big feelings are usually specific to the person feeling them. You're not going to always be noticing them from the outside. And I think it's important that we spend a little attention to the people we love and even strangers, to making sure that every day we are giving back something to other people, even the littlest things that can turn their day around. Because you never know, it might turn their life around. I am not always good about that, but it is always in my mind. I try to make sure that I'm putting out a little bit more good in the world than bad that I'm taking away from it, which is hard these days. But I think the harder it is, the more important it is. So what is the noise that Dante's hearing? What's the noise you can make in the world to give everyone else a little bit of hope? Is this getting too saccharine? I'm sorry. We don't have to dwell on that. When else are we going to talk about it in this story? And from personal experience and myself and seeing it in others, like sometimes the smallest thing can go the longest way in helping someone. And I feel like it's part of my life mission to help usher that mindset along in myself and in others. So I would be remiss if I hadn't said anything at all. But let's get to the specifics of Dante here. There's the line, actually, that he didn't want to die. That's awesome. Great. And that not only that, he recognizes that his mind is enfeebled and needs nurturing. He isn't thinking clearly, but he's thinking clearly enough to know he's not thinking clearly and that he needs to do something to help himself. And so he goes against his resolve, his initial resolve to not eat, and takes the opportunity to sip on the soup and the bread. Well, not the bread, just the soup, in order to restore himself. And even in that moment, like now this isn't a physiological, I mean, it is physiological, but like the fact that he just takes a sip or two of soup and recognizes and remembers, from his past experience, which is always filtered through the sea and being a captain of a ship, like the danger of overdoing it. You want to gorge yourself, which is deadly if you've been starving. And so, like, to me, that's saying, yeah, he might not be thinking clearly in terms of like developing schemes and plans and figuring things out like he does at the end of this passage of how he's going to determine who is actually making the noise. Is it a workman or is it a prisoner? There's a mental component to it of 2 sips of soup isn't going to completely restore your faculties. So it's the mental pressure that starvation and this situation has had on him. Finally, the soup isn't necessarily just about nutrients for his body. It is about, it's liquid hope. He's sipping it in, and it's restoring that part of his brain that, like, when you have hope, you can think more. You have the will to think more. And I think that's what we see transpire here. Okay, I'm at time for today. So again, I'm going to have to push the Scarlet Pimpernel conversation to a future episode. But I'm very excited that things are looking up for good old Dante here. Let's find out what this noise is. What do you think it could be? We didn't talk about that, but we will tomorrow here with more of the Count of Monte Cristo, Chapter 15. I'll see you then. Okay, goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.